Alright, so in this video we'll be discussing the factors which affect aggregate demand. And so there are two different types of main factors. So the first one is price as a factor, and then we have non-price factors. So anything which is not price basically affecting aggregate demand. Price always causes a movement along the aggregate demand curve. It's never a shift. And so I'll just draw the demand curve out here. So let's just say this is the aggregate demand curve. This represents AD. This represents the general price level. This is the general price level. I'm not gonna write the whole thing. General price level. This is the output slash expenditure slash income, which is represented by Y. And so in this case, this represents the aggregate demand curve. So let's say there is a change in price, right? So let's say if the price was 10, the general price level. I mean, obviously it can't be 10, but just for the sake of calculation. So 10, and then this is 5. So in this case, let's say if we move from A to B, and at B, the price is 5, this is 10, this is obviously, since the quantity is going from 5 to 10, it is increasing. This is known as an extension in the aggregate demand curve. And this is a movement along the same curve. It's not a shift. Now moving on to non-price determinants. And so non-price determinants cause shifts in the aggregate demand curve. Let's just draw this out as well. So again, same thing here, same axis, general price level. And this represents output slash expenditure slash income, right? So this is the basic diagram here. This is aggregate demand, and so we'll go over different cases one by one. So let's discuss case number A first. So in case number A, what's happening is that there is a rise in income level in the given economy. And so when incomes are rising, people will start demanding more of each and every good at each and every price, right? Because these, obviously this represents aggregate demand. If you were to look at the demand for each and every good, then this represents price, normal price of a good, let's say 10. And so people would start demanding more at even the same price. So let's set this, right? So people are demanding, let's say 5 here. People are demanding around 10 here. Right. And this is in the case of a macroeconomy, right? The economy as a whole. But just for the sake of simplicity, I took an example of an individual or the demand for a certain good just to make it simpler. But obviously this will obviously represent the demand for all goods and services in a given economy, which is aggregate demand. Otherwise that would come under microeconomics and not macroeconomics. So the first one was income, right? So income is one factor which causes shifts in the aggregate demand curve. The second factor can be a rise in optimism. So let me just erase all of this. Right. So let's say there is a rise in optimism in the given economy and consumer confidence in the economy is increasing, which boosts consumption and investment, which obviously increases aggregate demand. And so when AD increases, because people are obviously spending more, they're more confident about the future, and so they start spending more rather than saving more. Hence, the demand for all goods and services in the economy will increase. AD increases yet again. So same thing happening here, 5 and 10 here. So at the same price, people are willing to buy more and more. Right. But obviously this represents not the price of a certain good, rather the general price level. Then the next part is C. So let's say there is an increase in money supply. So I would say let's just classify all of these upcoming factors under fiscal and monetary policy. So if you have watched that video, I think this will make much more sense. If you haven't, then I would suggest you to watch that one first. So fiscal and monetary policy. These policies are used to affect demand. They're demand management policies. Fiscal policy has taxation, so taxes and government expenditure as the two different tools that it uses. Then in monetary policy, we have money supply, money supply. We also have interest rates, so interest rates, and we also have exchange rates. So exchange rates, again, you have to watch that video to understand this one better, but I'm just going to give a brief overview. So let's say if the government increases taxes and the government decreases government expenditure, right? Which basically means that less people will be hired for government projects, because whenever the government spends its money, let's say on schools or maybe building roads, the government employs people, right? So it employs people, and then these people receive cash from the government for working for the government. And so when they receive this cash, they spend this cash on, let's say, a certain good or commodity at a certain shop. Then that shop earns money, and this will be counted on um, the consumption part of the aggregate demand curve, and so it will increase this. Um, this is what happens when the government obviously increases government expenditure. In this case, it is decreasing government expenditure. So for a lot of people, this money will go away, right? And so this money won't go to the shop, and so the shop won't earn money, and so aggregate demand won't really increase. Rather, since taxation is going up, government expenditure is going down, less people will be employed, less people will have that sort of money to buy goods and services. That will shift the aggregate demand curve to the left. I'm just gonna move something like this, or shift. Sorry, not a movement. I take that back. A shift. So it's gonna end up something like this. Yeah. Then in the case, so let's say if the government would increase its government expenditure, decrease its access, the opposite would happen. It would shift outwards, as we saw before as well. Right. Now let's just clear up things on the graph itself. Right. So we're done with the fiscal policy part, so let's just get rid of this. Right. The same thing will happen with monetary policy. So if the government uses expansionary monetary policy, when it increases the money supply, it decreases the interest rates, and at the same time it depreciates its own currency. The aggregate demand curve will shift to the right and will, let's say, take it to 82. In another case, what can happen is that the government can reduce money supply, the government can increase interest rates and appreciate its currency, so that the currency of that country will become more expensive in terms of other currencies, and so it will become more difficult for people who are in other countries or people who have foreign currency to buy the given economy's currency. Again, this will make much more sense if you watch the exchange rate video, right? And so the curve in this case will shift to 81, which means that it will shift inwards over here. So aggregate demand will decrease. So that's pretty much it from this video.